We're back with another Premier League tier list. Today, we're going to be ranking Premier League midfielders. This is specifically central midfielders, and there's 33 midfielders on this list. I'm Sideline Sedo. We're going to get right into it, but comment down below. Who do you think is the best midfielder on this list? Who do you think is the worst midfielder on this list? Also, in the comments, or rather in the description, there should be a link to this tier list. Go and complete it yourself if you want to do your own. Let's get into it. And as always, if you end up enjoying the video, consider giving it a like. Starting with some Newcastle players, which is kind of an interesting start. 3 Newcastle midfielders immediately. We have Sandro Tonali, who I think is a quality midfielder. I think he's going to be a decent signing for Newcastle in the long run. My only concern would be is that he's a little too similar to Bruno Guimaraes, but I don't think that necessarily, impedes too much on his overall quality. I'd put him at like a solid B. He's young still. He's a quality midfielder. We'll see how he gets on for Newcastle. If they sign someone like James Maddison and they had him alongside Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali, I think it's a much better situation. But you have Joelinton there, who, no offense to Joelinton, he's an absolute engine of a midfielder, but this is the season where he gets kind of found out a bit. He's going to be playing Champions League football. He's going to be starting consistently for Newcastle. He's going to kind of run himself into the ground, I assume. And he's just not that like high quality in terms of anything besides his work rate and his tenacity. And that is really good. But because of that, I'd have to put him at like D tier, honestly. Like he might go up, but as of right now, it's D tier. Next up is Bruno Guimaraes, who I think is a solid midfielder. But at the same time, I think he does kind of leave a bit to be lacking at Newcastle at times. There are moments where, he just has these lapses, but I think he's quality. Because of that, I'm going to have to put him at B as well. Maybe A. Let's leave him in at A for now. Next is Moise Caicedo, 115 million pound man. Life at Stamford Bridge has not been too easy for him to start. He had a killer season last year with Brighton, but regardless, I think he's like also like a B, kind of like that Tonali region. Next is Mohamed Dahoud. Dahoud is a player who played at Dortmund for an extensive period of time. Now he's at Brighton. I've seen him play in, patches here and there throughout the season. He hasn't really started too much, but I think he's a decent midfielder, kind of generally average, probably right in the middle of these two tiers. I'll put him in at C. Next is Pascal Gross. Gross is a player who gets severely underrated. He has like electric starts to the season. He always scores against Manchester United. And all in all, I think he's a player who provides a lot to Brighton and goes under the radar. And honestly, because of that, like I'm tempted to put him at B, but like he's probably closer to a high C. We'll keep him there at at C for now. And if we need to move somebody up to B, he'll be the first to go as of right now. Next is Rodri, who I think very simply has to go in at S. Rodri has been incredible for City these last couple of seasons. As a Liverpool fan, that pains me to say, but he's a quality midfielder. He gets away with tactical fouls a lot, which is something that when your team's playing, you want your CDM to be doing. That is like awesome when it happens. And, he gets away with just a warning or a yellow. But yeah, Rodri's S. Also, Kevin De Bruyne, S. He's just such an incredible player, Kevin De Bruyne. He's having a lot of injuries as of late, having a lot of issues with injury, a reoccurring hamstring problem that dates back to the Champions League final and God knows how long back as well. But he's really that good. I highly rate him, so definitely going into S for Kevin De Bruyne. Bernardo Silva is a weird one because I feel like nowadays he's more of like a winger for City, but either way, I'd probably put him like right here as well. I mean, it's kind of hard not to put him in at S when this is the competition. He's like the first to drop out of the City three. I'd put Rodri in at second and Bernardo in at third as of right now. But all three of them, I feel like, speak for themselves. I won't like harp on that too long. They're quality players, and worst comes to worst, Bernardo drops here. But as of right now, he's there. Next is Mateo Kovacic. Kovacic made a switch from Chelsea to City this summer. He's slotted right in. Kevin De Bruyne's been injured, and he's picked up the pieces pretty easily. Gundogan's also left, so he's just kind of fit into the system very well. And I think he's a B because while he does, he's doing well for them right now. He did great for Chelsea at stretches. He's still also very injury prone, and I'm a big believer of the best kind of quality or ability that you can have is availability. And while Kevin De Bruyne being in a S kind of is a bit of a like contradiction to that, Kevin De Bruyne for the most part has been relatively fit for extensive periods of his career, so I think that's fair. Next is Martin Odegaard, who I'm going to put in at S, and I'm going to drop Bernardo Silva down to A. I don't want to crowd the S, but Martin Odegaard is super quality. Arsenal fans should be lucky that they have a player like Martin Odegaard because, man, oh man, the stuff he can do with the ball, the goals he can score, the assists he can provide, he is just electric at times. And, I think that based on just like his output, he's one of the best midfielders in the league. Next is Thomas Partey, a very interesting character here. A lot of stories around Partey. He kind of had an awesome start to the season last year, and then about 60% of the way through the season, he kind of just tapered off and shut down and kind of forgot how to play. But all in all, I know this might sound crazy, but I really would probably put Partey right there somewhere. Like, I don't know. He's like a decent player, but yeah, I don't know. I think that's fair. Next is Declan Rice. Declan Rice, I'd put like probably somewhere right there. I think that's fair. I know the price tag's huge. I know he's, adored by Arsenal fans right now, but Declan Rice really Conference League win, sure. That's cool, but he doesn't move me a lot. Like, he doesn't inspire me a ton. Like, I can understand why you would want a player of Declan Rice's quality, but well, honestly, I'm gonna have to do this actually. I'll put him in at A because I do think that it's close between Partey, Kovacic, and Rice, but I'd put him probably right there between these two. I think that's fair for him. I know he's quality, but like he's just kind of boring to me, and I don't know. I don't get too inspired by Declan Rice, but he's quality, and for what he provides Arsenal, regardless of the price tag, I think he's got to be an A. Next is Amadou Onana, who I think is probably like high D. I think this might be closer to the reality, if we're being entirely honest. I don't know. He's played well for Everton in Merseyside derbies. He's done well several times, but I just can't help but feel that there's just something lacking there. Next up, I'm gonna put Paulinho in at high C. He's a good player, a tad bit over aggressive at times, but still very quality. And he's older, but he acclimated to the Premier League very easily last season. And all in all, I rate him, but I can't necessarily put him in this tier with these players. But yeah. Next is Yves Bissouma, who I think I have to put like high C and move Onana to high D. I think this is fair for right now. I'd put him low C, but he's improved this season. He had a great season with Brighton 2 seasons ago. Bit of a taper off last season. If we're talking about him last season, he's probably closer to D or an F. But yeah, I think he's class in terms of how he started this season. I think there's a true player in there, so he's a low C for me. Next is Oliver Skip, and I'm sorry, Oliver Skip, but you're the first F of the night. I don't know if there's going to be many Fs here, but and this is all relative. Like, because he's an F doesn't mean he's like a terrible, good for nothing player. It just means that relative to the rest of the list, he's probably at the bottom. So sorry, Oliver Skip, but just keep grinding, fam. Next is James Maddison, who I'm gonna put at high A. I think Madison is very close to an S tier player. It just really depends on if he could keep this kind of output going for this whole season. He did it with Leicester last year, but you could make an argument that that's in like a kind of weaker team that's not necessarily like, he's got more license or whatever, but he's gotten the creative license to do what he's doing at Tottenham, and he's been cooking. So high A, just almost breaking into S. Next up is Enzo Fernandez. And I think that I'm going to do something here that might kind of upset a few people. But first off, Party, I think, is slightly worse than Tonali. Then we're going to bring in Enzo Fernandez. We're going to put him in here. We're going to move Kovacic probably in between. Kovacic is good there. Caicedo there. Is Enzo in a good spot? Enzo is probably... It's probably closer to this, if we're being entirely honest. Yeah, I think that... Nah, it's gotta be this. I think that's fair. Next is Conor Gallagher. But first, let me talk about Enzo. And this might be a little controversial, but I do think Enzo Fernandez is an incredibly talented midfielder. I just think he's in a rotten sarcophagus of a club like Chelsea. It's just it's a place where players' careers look like they're gonna go to die. And I hope Enzo's, makes it out without too much tarnishing. But I do think he's really quality. He just needs proper support at Chelsea and quality players around him. Next is Conor Gallagher. He's probably high D. This is where I'd put him, probably. I think that's fair. Alexis McAllister, I think, is probably right there, which would, and I think this is what we'll do. Move everyone down one. Move everybody down one, I think that's fair. I think McAllister is just a tad bit more complete than Enzo. McAllister can play as a 6, but he could play as an 8. He could play as a 10. Enzo is a bit of a deeper player. They are different slightly. They both won a World Cup. They both played in midfield together for the World Cup. And I think, in terms of quality, it's pretty hard to, go undone with that level. Bernardo Silva, though, kind of looking weird here now, though. I don't know if I feel awesome with that. But next is Dominic Szoboszlai. And I've only, Dominic Szoboszlai, I am a Liverpool fan, right? And I do think that I try to toe a good line of, not being biased and also, saying how I see it. I've only seen a bit of Szoboszlai play for Liverpool in terms of these first 4 games, right? Him and McAllister have already played more minutes than Ox and Keita did last season. So, in that regard, it's, a far bigger sample size to some of the midfielders that we lost. And I do think this is maybe a little crazy, but I'm going to do some shifting here to fit him in a balanced place where I think he fits. And with that, I think I'm going to put Madison in. I'm going to put Bernardo Silva in at S, just because he's proven it time and time again. He'll probably cook this season. Madison ahead of Szoboszlai and ahead of McAllister just slightly. But I think I'll give Enzo this kind of jump here, and I'm going to push Mateo Kovacic ahead of Declan Rice. I think this is a bit more balanced. Szoboszlai, I think, is right there. Like this cutoff for S, this is like S and S point, or like 0.5 S, So that's how I kind of see it at the moment. Souček, real warrior of a player for West Ham. Proper, rough and tumble CDM, but I do think he's kind of mid at times. But he's had a good start to the season, And when I see West Ham play, he's oftentimes either getting a red card or their best player. So he's impactful at least. I'm gonna put him in at like C, right here, but I'm also gonna push Onana to F. Dahoud, I think, playing at Dortmund that long, and now that he's at Brighton, I don't think he's gonna be as bad as Onana. Lucas Paqueta. Lucas Paqueta is a player I highly rate. Beyond just his his whole betting kind of controversy. But I do think he kind of could use a bit more, just output in terms of quality. I think he's got to go probably high. I'll put him in at B, like right here. I think he's like probably this level. Bruno Fernandes, I hate him as a player. As a captain, I hate him. I'm a Liverpool fan. I'll always have like some vitriol that I can direct towards the Manchester United captain whenever they're playing or whenever we're talking footy. Bruno Fernandes, his numbers are kind of inflated because of penalties. He does roll around and dive a lot, but he can also pass the ball like an absolute maniac. He's just kind of a beast, and honestly, who knows where United would be out without him. So as a result, I'm gonna put him in probably top of A. I think that's fair. Maybe like low S. Let's put him in at low S. I think he's better than Bernardo Silva. Is he better than Martin Odegaard? No, I don't think so. Next is Christian Eriksen. Great recovery from his unfortunate incident at the World Cup a few seasons back. Balled out with Brentford last season. A Tottenham legend, so to speak, in terms of how he was running the show and pulling the strings while he was there. Now he's at United, and this form of Eriksen I think is decent. But I think it's closer to like that level, kind of like you know, like a Suchek gross level can put in a shift, can, maybe get you an assist here or there. Maybe some shifting could be done here where someone like Eriksen goes up to C rather. And goes ahead of Suchek, ahead of Palhinha and Caicedo. Probably, honestly, I'll put him there. I think that's a valid placement for Christian Eriksen. Next is Casemiro, who I'll put in an S, and I'll push Bernardo Silva to low A. Will I put Madison ahead of him? Maybe in terms of in terms of how they'll perform this season, I think everyone in A will outperform Bernardo Silva. But at this moment, Bernardo Silva still has it in his locker, and I still think he's a quality player. Next is Yuri Tielemans. Tielemans, honestly, I think is like right there. I think that's a very valid placement for him. He didn't do too well at Leicester last season. He seemed like he down tools. He just looked okay for Villa, but for what he was supposed to be, Yuri Tielemans was supposed to be the next big Belgian midfielder, and he's just kind of been more of a Real Madrid Eden Hazard than a Manchester City Kevin De Bruyne, let's just say. Next is Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz, honestly, like, I can't help but put him like kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, there maybe, I guess, and push Dahoud to high F. I mean, this feels harsh on Dahoud. So we'll keep him there, but I don't know. I just feel like I don't know where to really put him. He's okay sometimes when he plays for Villa, and other times he looks awful. So I'll have to put him like right there, and maybe he drops to F to balance out the spread of players here. Next is Buendia. Buendia, I'm going to give an F. Not been impressed by Bro since like the Norwich days. He has not been the same type of player. I don't know. He has an injury now this season, which is unfortunate. Hopefully he can recover, but at this point in time, I just feel like he's kind of whatever. I don't know. Mason Mount. Curious case of Mason Mount. We're moving Douglas Luiz to high F2. Sorry, fam. But it's balanced now. And we have 3 players. Mason Mount, Mateus Nunes, and Romeo Lavia. Lavia, I think, probably has to fall in like the low D, maybe F tier. I'm gonna put him in at D. And then we'll put in Mount. Well, let's do Mateus Nunes. Mateus Nunes, I think, is a decent midfielder. City probably overpaid for him, but he'll probably thrive and become a far better player than he was at Wolves at City. So he'll go there. And Mason Mount, I think he's slightly better than Christian Eriksen, but probably worse than everybody else there. So I think this is like a fair list here. Would I adjust anybody? I don't know. I think that's it. Yeah, that's my list. My 5 best midfielders in the Premier League at this moment are Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri, Martin Odegaard, Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro at 5th. You know what? I'm going to do something controversial just to end the video. Casemiro, I think, has fallen off a bit this season, and I don't think that's any fault of his own. I think that's down to Ten Hag's man management. So I'm going to put him there, and I'm going to move my man, James Maddison, into 5th spot just because he's had such an electric start to the season. And I do think he's quality. It's just a matter of if James Maddison can see this quality through for a whole season's length at a bigger club. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, why not consider subscribing? Also comment down below, who is your favorite midfielder in the Premier League this season? Who are your least favorite midfielders in the Premier League at the moment? You could do the tier list down in the description if you want to. And as always, like the video if you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sideline Sedo. Peace.